Admiral Day sat in his command chair aboard the massive space station that overlooked the border. His eyes were fixed on the massive display screen in front of him. The screen showed empty space, but he knew that would change soon. Intelligence reports had been flooding in for weeks. The Vorath Empire was coming. The Vorath had ruled the galaxy for 2,000 years. They had conquered over 400 star systems. Hundreds of alien species bowed before them. Their fleets were legendary. Their power was absolute, or so they believed. Captain Hana stood beside the Admiral, her arms crossed. She commanded the dreadnought Iron Will, the most powerful ship in the Terran fleet. She had seen the reports, too. 5,000 Vorath warships were heading toward human space. It was the largest fleet the Empire had assembled in 3 centuries. "They think we'll surrender," Hana said quietly. Day nodded. "Every species does at first. The Vorath send their demands. The species submits. It's been their pattern for millennia. We're not like the others." "No," Day agreed. "We're not." Ambassador Yuna walked onto the command deck. She looked tired. She had spent the last month trying to establish diplomatic contact with the Vorath. They had ignored most of her messages. When they finally responded, their answer had been simple and arrogant. "They sent their formal demand an hour ago," Yuna said, handing a data pad to the Admiral. "I thought you should see it." Day read the message aloud. "To the primitive species of Terra, the Vorath Empire claims all star systems in Sector 447. You will evacuate your colonies within 30 days. You will submit to Imperial authority. You will provide tribute of resources and labor. Resistance is futile. Compliance is mandatory. Glory to the Empire." Hana laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Primitive species. They haven't even bothered to study us." "Should we tell them?" Yuna asked. "About Earth's history? About what we are?" Day shook his head. "They wouldn't believe us. They've grown too comfortable, too certain of their superiority. Words won't convince them." "Then what will?" Yuna pressed. "Action," Day said simply. The Admiral stood and walked to the main display. He pulled up a map of the border region. A bright red line marked the boundary between Terran space and the rest of the galaxy. Humanity had drawn that line 20 years ago when they first encountered other species. Beyond it lay the vast Vorath Empire. Within it lay 80 human colonies, small compared to the Empire's holdings, but fiercely defended. "Send my response," Day ordered. Yuna pulled out her communication device. "What should I say?" "Tell them this. The Terran Command recognizes no authority but its own. We will not evacuate our worlds. We will not submit. We will not pay tribute. The red line marks our border. Cross it, and we will consider it an act of war. We will respond with overwhelming force. This is your only warning." Yuna's eyes widened. "Admiral, that's practically inviting them to attack." "They were always going to attack," Day replied. "The Vorath don't negotiate. They don't compromise. They conquer. Better to make our position clear now." Yuna hesitated, then nodded. She sent the message. Light years away, High Chancellor Vrextal received the human response aboard his flagship. He was a towering creature, over 8 feet tall, with 4 arms and skin like dark metal. He had commanded fleets for 200 years. He had never faced defeat. When he read the human message, he laughed. The sound echoed through his command chamber. His officers joined in the laughter. "Overwhelming force," Vrextal repeated, amused. "These creatures control 80 systems. We control 400. They have perhaps 200 warships. We have 5,000 approaching their border. What overwhelming force could they possibly possess?" His tactical officer, a smaller Vorath named Kelvin, studied his displays. "High Chancellor, we have very little information about human military capabilities. Perhaps we should—" "Silence!" Vrextal snapped. "Every species says the same things before they fall. They threaten, they posture, then they see our fleets and they kneel. Humans will be no different. But, sir, send a scout ship across their border, Vrextal ordered. Let's test their resolve. Back at the Terran Command station, alarms began to sound. A junior officer called out, "Admiral, we have a single Vorath vessel approaching the red line. It's small. Looks like a scout class." Day watched the display. The small ship moved steadily toward the border. It was moving slowly, deliberately, testing them. "Orders, sir?" Hana asked. "The standing orders remain," Day said calmly. "Nothing crosses the red line." "Understood." Hana opened a channel to the automated defense grid. These were weapons platforms scattered along the entire border. Each one was equipped with advanced targeting systems and devastating firepower. Humanity had spent 20 years building them. The galaxy had no idea they existed. The Vorath scout ship crossed the red line. For exactly 2 seconds, nothing happened. Then the nearest defense platform fired. A beam of concentrated energy, powerful enough to punch through a small moon, struck the scout ship. The vessel didn't explode. It simply ceased to exist. One moment it was there. The next, it was a cloud of scattered atoms. On the Vorath flagship, alarms screamed. Officers shouted reports. Vrextal stared at his display in shock. "What happened?" he demanded. "The scout ship is gone, High Chancellor," Kelvin reported, his voice shaking. "It was destroyed instantly. We detected no warning, no missile launch, no energy buildup. One moment it was there, the next—" "I can see that," Vrextal roared. "How? How did they destroy it so quickly?" "Unknown, sir. The weapon signature doesn't match anything in our databases." Vrextal's 4 hands clenched into fists. No one destroyed Vorath ships. No one. Certainly not some primitive species that had barely left their home system a few centuries ago. "Prepare a punitive force," he ordered. 500 ships. We'll teach these humans the price of defiance. Kelvin looked worried. "High Chancellor, perhaps we should study them further before—" "500 ships!" Vrextal shouted. "Launch immediately!" Admiral Day watched as 500 Vorath warships formed up and began moving toward the border. Each ship was massive, some over 2 miles long. They moved in a tight formation, a wall of metal and firepower designed to intimidate. "They're coming," Hana observed. "Yes," Day agreed. "Get to your ship, Captain. Take Battle Group 7 and intercept them." "How many ships do I have?" 30, Hana smiled. 30 against 500. They still don't understand, do they? "No," Day said. "They don't." Hana saluted and left the command deck. Within minutes, she was aboard the Iron Will. The dreadnought powered up its systems. Around it, 29 other Terran warships did the same. Destroyers, cruisers, and frigates, each one bristling with weapons the galaxy had never seen. As the Vorath fleet crossed the red line, Hana opened a channel to her crew. "All hands, battle stations. Target their capital ships first. Show them what Terran engineering can do." The 2 fleets raced toward each other. The Vorath came in a massive formation, confident in their numbers. The Terran ships spread out, moving fast and unpredictable. In his command station, Admiral Day watched the displays. Ambassador Yuna stood beside him, her face pale. "Can we really win this?" she asked quietly. Day smiled. "Ambassador, the Vorath have spent 2,000 years conquering peaceful species. Species that never fought wars among themselves. Species that saw combat as primitive and barbaric. And humans? Humans spent 10,000 years perfecting the art of war. We fought each other across our entire planet. We built weapons that could destroy our own world. We learned tactics and strategy through blood and fire. When we finally united and went to the stars, we brought all that knowledge with us." Day's smile grew wider. "The Vorath are about to learn that there's a difference between conquest and war. And humans wrote the book on war." The first shots were fired, and the battle began. Captain Hana stood on the bridge of the Iron Will as the Vorath fleet approached. Through the massive viewing screen, she could see the enemy ships. They looked like dark mountains floating in space, each one covered in weapons and armor. 500 of them, moving in perfect formation. "Distance?" she asked calmly. 200,000 kilometers and closing, her tactical officer replied. Hana studied the enemy formation. It was textbook Vorath strategy. A massive wall of ships designed to overwhelm through sheer firepower. It had worked for them for 2,000 years. They saw no reason to change. "They're not even trying to be tactical," her weapons officer, Commander Jin, observed. "They're just coming straight at us." "Why would they?" Hana replied. "In their experience, numbers are all that matter. They've never faced an enemy that could actually hurt them." The communication system crackled. "Terran vessels, this is the Vorath war fleet. You are outnumbered 17-1. Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. The Empire shows mercy to those who surrender quickly." Hana smiled. "Open a channel." "Channel open, Captain." "Vorath fleet, this is Captain Hana of the Terran Dreadnought Iron Will. You have crossed our border without permission. This is an act of war. Turn back now or be destroyed. You will receive no further warnings." There was a long pause. Then laughter came through the speakers. "Destroyed? By 30 ships? Your species is even more foolish than we thought." "We will enjoy adding your worlds to the Empire." Hana closed the channel. "All ships, weapons free. Target their capital ships. Fire when ready." The Iron Will fired first. From its forward battery, 3 torpedoes launched. They didn't look like much, small silver objects against the vastness of space. But they moved impossibly fast, accelerating to a significant fraction of light speed in seconds. The Vorath fleet's shields came up. Energy barriers that had stopped countless weapons flickered to life across all 500 ships. The fleet commanders weren't worried. Their shields could absorb tremendous punishment. The first torpedo hit a Vorath battleship. It didn't explode on the shield. Instead, it passed straight through as if the shield wasn't there. It struck the hull and detonated. The battleship, over a mile long and weighing millions of tons, simply came apart. The explosion was so powerful that the 2 ships on either side of it were caught in the blast. 3 capital ships destroyed in an instant. "What?" the Vorath fleet commander started to say. Then the other 2 torpedoes hit. 2 more battleships died. "Report!" High Chancellor Vrextal screamed from his flagship, far behind the combat zone. "What's happening?" "We've lost 5 capital ships, High Chancellor," Kelvin reported, his voice shaking. "Their weapons passed through our shields. Our defensive systems didn't even register them until impact." "That's impossible. Our shields stop everything." "Apparently not, sir." The Terran fleet spread out, each ship moving independently. They didn't fly in formation like the Vorath. Instead, they darted and weaved, making themselves difficult targets, and they kept firing. Commander Jin watched his display with satisfaction. "Graviton torpedoes performing as expected, Captain. The Vorath shields are designed for energy weapons and physical projectiles. They can't stop gravity-based weapons." "Keep firing," Hana ordered. "Target their command ships." More torpedoes streaked across space. The Vorath fleet tried to return fire, but the Terran ships were too fast, too maneuverable. Massive energy beams passed through empty space where Terran vessels had been moments before. One Vorath ship got lucky. Its beam struck a Terran destroyer. The destroyer's shields flared bright blue, absorbing the impact. The ship shook, but held together. "Quantum shields at 70%, the destroyer's captain reported over the fleet channel. "We're still in the fight." The Vorath couldn't understand it. Their weapons should have destroyed that small ship. How were these humans so resilient? The answer was simple. While the Vorath had spent 2,000 years conquering, they had stopped innovating. Their technology had stagnated. Why improve weapons when the old ones worked fine against defenseless species? Humans had taken a different path. Every year brought new research, new development, new weapons. Humanity had entered space knowing they were alone, knowing they might face threats. They had prepared accordingly. Dr. Sora watched the battle from a research station orbiting a nearby planet. She had designed many of the weapons the Terran fleet was using. Seeing them in action filled her with a mixture of pride and horror. Pride in her work, horror at what it did. "The graviton torpedoes are exceeding expectations," her assistant said, monitoring the data streaming in from the battle. "I see that," Sora replied quietly. She had created those weapons hoping they would never be used. But when the Vorath had issued their demands, she had known they would be necessary. "How are the quantum shields holding?" "Better than projected. The Vorath energy weapons are powerful, but they're crude. Our shields are designed to disperse energy across multiple quantum states. Their weapons can't concentrate enough power to break through." Back in the battle, the Vorath fleet was in chaos. They had lost 30 ships in the first 10 minutes. 30 ships, against an enemy that should have been easy prey. "All ships, concentrate fire on the largest enemy vessel," the Vorath fleet commander ordered. "Destroy their flagship!" 200 Vorath ships turned their weapons on the Iron Will. Energy beams, plasma bolts, and missiles converged on Hana's dreadnought. "Shields at maximum," Hana ordered calmly. "Helm, evasive pattern delta." The Iron Will twisted and turned, its powerful engines pushing it through space in ways that seemed to defy physics. Most of the Vorath weapons missed entirely. Those that hit splashed harmlessly against the quantum shields. "Return fire," Hana said. "Show them what a real capital ship can do." The Iron Will's main cannon charged. It was a massive weapon that ran through the entire length of the ship. It fired a beam of concentrated particles, accelerated to 99% of light speed. The beam lanced out and struck a Vorath battleship dead center. The ship's shields collapsed instantly. The armor melted. The beam went completely through the ship and out the other side, then hit the ship behind it, and the one behind that. 3 Vorath capital ships destroyed with one shot. "Reload time 3 minutes, Commander Jin reported. "Make it 2, Hana ordered. Around the Iron Will, the other Terran ships continued their deadly work. Destroyers fired swarms of smaller missiles. Cruisers used laser arrays that could track multiple targets simultaneously. Frigates deployed mines that jumped through space using micro-FTL drives, appearing inside enemy formations. The Vorath had never seen warfare like this. They were used to slugging matches, ships standing toe-to-toe and trading fire until one side broke. The Terran ships didn't fight that way. They moved constantly, attacked from unexpected angles, used weapons the Vorath didn't understand. General Tay stood in the command center on the colony world of New Sol. He watched the orbital display showing the battle above. His ground forces were ready just in case any Vorath ships made it through. But he was beginning to think they wouldn't be needed. "The fleet is winning," his aide said, almost disbelieving. "Of course they are," Tay replied. "The Vorath think war is about having bigger ships. But war is about strategy, tactics, and the will to win. Humans understand that better than any species in the galaxy." 2 hours into the battle, the Vorath fleet had lost 200 ships. The Terran fleet had lost 3. High Chancellor Vrextal stared at his displays in horror. This wasn't possible. It couldn't be happening. The mighty Vorath Empire didn't lose battles to inferior species. "High Chancellor," Kelvin said quietly, "we need to withdraw. We're being destroyed." "No!" Vrextal roared. "Send in the reserve forces, all of them!" "Sir, we don't have any reserves here. You committed the entire punitive force to this attack." Vrextal's 4 hands trembled. He had been so certain, so absolutely sure that 500 ships would be more than enough. The humans only had 30 ships. 30. But those 30 ships had destroyed 200 of his vessels and were still fighting. "Order the retreat," Vrextal said, the words tasting like poison in his mouth. "Sir, You heard me. Order the retreat. The Vorath ships turned and ran. They didn't withdraw in good order. They fled in panic, every ship racing to get away from the deadly Terran vessels. Captain Hana watched them go. "Shall we pursue, Admiral?" she asked over the command channel. From his station, Admiral Day considered. "Negative, Captain. Let them run. Let them tell the Empire what happened here. Sometimes the story of a defeat is more powerful than the defeat itself." The Terran fleet held position as the Vorath fled. Of the 500 ships that had crossed the border, only 280 made it back. 220 had been destroyed. Hana walked through her ship, checking on her crew. They had won a great victory, but she saw the exhaustion on their faces. War was never easy, even in victory. Commander Jin approached her. "Captain, the crew is asking what happens next." "Next?" Hana looked at him. "Next, we repair our ships. We mourn our dead, and we prepare, because the Vorath won't stop here. They can't. Their entire empire is built on the belief that they're invincible. We've shattered that belief. They'll have to come back, and next time they'll bring everything they have." "Can we win against their full fleet?" Hana smiled. "Commander, we just beat 500 ships with 30. Yes, we can win. Because we're not just fighting for territory or glory. We're fighting for our freedom, our homes, our future. And humans have never lost when everything is on the line." Supreme Admiral Krath stood in the war room of the Imperial Palace. He was old, even by Vorath standards, having served the Empire for over 3 centuries. He had seen countless battles, conquered dozens of species, and never once tasted defeat. Now he stared at the holographic display showing the remains of the punitive fleet, and he felt something he hadn't experienced in centuries: doubt. Empress Zalara sat on her throne, watching him with cold eyes. She was younger than Krath, but no less formidable. She had ruled the Empire for 50 years with an iron will. "Explain to me, Supreme Admiral, how 500 of our finest warships were destroyed by 30 primitive vessels," she said, her voice dangerously calm. High Chancellor Vrextal stood to the side, his 4 arms hanging limply. He looked broken. Krath almost felt sorry for him. "Your Majesty," Krath began, choosing his words carefully, "it appears we underestimated the humans. Their technology is far more advanced than our intelligence suggested. Their weapons pass through our shields. Their defenses stop our weapons, and their tactical doctrine is unlike anything we've encountered." "You've watched the battle recordings?" "Every second, Your Majesty. Multiple times." "And your assessment?" Krath hesitated. What he was about to say went against everything the Empire believed. "Your Majesty, I believe the humans are more dangerous than any species we've ever faced. They don't fight like the others. They fight like us. No, worse than us. They fight like war is their nature." The Empress leaned forward. "You think we should avoid further conflict?" "No, Your Majesty. We cannot. If we back down now, every species in the Empire will see it as weakness. Rebellions will start. The Empire will crumble. We must defeat the humans or we will lose everything." "Then do so. I will need more ships. Many more." "How many?" 3,000 warships, Your Majesty, and I will need to personally lead them." The Empress nodded slowly. "You have your ships, Supreme Admiral. Do not fail me." Light years away, Admiral Day sat in his private quarters, reading reports. The victory had been overwhelming, but it had cost them. 3 ships destroyed, 412 crew members dead. He had written personal messages to each of their families. It never got easier. A chime at his door interrupted his thoughts. "Come in." Captain Hana entered, along with Commander Wu, who led the fighter squadrons. Wu was young, barely 30, with a cocky smile that reminded Day of himself at that age. "Admiral," Hana began, Intelligence suggests the Vorath are assembling a much larger fleet. Day nodded. I expected as much. How large? At least 3,000 ships, sir, possibly more. And they're putting their best commander in charge, Supreme Admiral Krath. I've heard of him, Day said. He's no fool like Vrex Tall. He'll study our tactics. He'll adapt. Can we beat 3,000 ships? Wu asked. The young commander's usual confidence was slightly shaken. Day stood and walked to his window. Outside, he could see the dockyards where new ships were being built at a frantic pace. Humanity had known this day would come. They had prepared. Commander Wu, do you know why humans are good at war? Because we practiced on each other for thousands of years? That's part of it. But the real reason is simpler. When humans fight, we fight with everything we have. We don't hold back. We don't fight for glory or honor or tradition. We fight to win. By any means necessary, the Vorath fight because they expect to win. We fight because we refuse to lose. There's a difference. So yes, Hana said, we can beat 3,000 ships, but it won't be easy. 3 weeks later, the Vorath invasion fleet arrived at the border. 3,000 warships, the largest military force ever assembled by the Empire. Supreme Admiral Krath had spent those 3 weeks studying the humans, learning their tactics, preparing countermeasures. He had noticed that human ships relied on speed and maneuverability, so he designed a new formation, spread out to prevent chain reactions from graviton torpedoes. He had noticed that human shields were strong but required enormous power, so he planned to overwhelm them with sustained fire, draining their energy reserves. Begin the invasion, he ordered. The massive fleet crossed the red line in a wave. This time, the automated defense platforms fired, but there were too many targets. They destroyed dozens of ships, but the fleet kept coming. Admiral Day watched from his command station. They've learned. Krath is spreading his forces. Smart. Our fleet? Hana asked. Every ship we have. 150 vessels against 3,000. Captain, you'll command the main battle group. I'm putting you in charge of the dreadnoughts. And the fighters? Commander Wu grinned. My people are ready, Admiral. 2,000 fighters, ready to deploy. The two fleets met at the Sigma 7 system, a strategically important location with 3 colonized planets. If the Vorath took this system, they would have a foothold in Terran space. The battle began at dawn, Sigma 7 time. The star's light illuminated the vast armada of ships as they opened fire. This time, the Vorath were ready. When the Terran ships fired their graviton torpedoes, the Vorath ships scattered. The torpedoes still found targets, but not as many as before. And when they did hit, nearby ships were far enough away to avoid the blast. They've adapted, Commander Jin reported from the Iron Will. Expected, Hana replied. Switch to kinetic weapons. Let's see how they handle that. The Terran ships began firing railguns, weapons that accelerated physical projectiles to incredible speeds. The projectiles hit with devastating force, and unlike the torpedoes, they were harder to evade at close range. But the Vorath had numbers. For every shot the Terran ships fired, the Vorath returned 10. The Terran shields held, but the constant bombardment was draining power reserves exactly as Krath had planned. Fighters away, Wu commanded. From the Terran carriers, 2,000 small craft launched. They were tiny compared to the capital ships, but they were fast and deadly. Each fighter carried missiles and lasers, and more importantly, they were piloted by humans who had trained their entire lives for this moment. Lieutenant Rena flew her fighter through the chaos of battle. Energy beams crossed space in every direction. Explosions bloomed like flowers. Ships died on both sides. It was terrifying and exhilarating. Gold Squadron, follow me, she called to her wingmates. We're going after that carrier. Her squadron of 12 fighters dove toward a Vorath carrier. The massive ship's point defense systems opened up, filling space with fire. 2 of her fighters exploded, but the rest made it through. "Missiles away!" 12 missiles streaked toward the carrier's engines. They hit in sequence, each explosion feeding into the next. The carrier's power plant went critical and the entire ship detonated. "That's one!" Rena called, pulling her fighter into a tight turn. "Next target!" Across the battlefield, human fighters were making a difference. They struck fast and retreated before the Vorath could respond. They targeted weak points, engines, weapon systems, and command modules. Individually, they were tiny threats. Together, they were a swarm of death. But the Vorath kept coming. Supreme Admiral Krath watched the battle with cold calculation. Yes, he was losing ships, but the humans were losing them too, and he had far more to spare. "Press the attack," he ordered. "All ships, focus fire on their largest vessels. Break their capital ships and their fleet will crumble." 1,000 Vorath ships concentrated their weapons on the Terran dreadnoughts. The quantum shields held, but the power drain was massive. One by one, the dreadnoughts began to fall back, their shields flickering. "Admiral, we're being overwhelmed," Hana reported. "I'm losing ships." Day watched his displays. This was the critical moment. They could retreat, save their fleet, and cede the Sigma-7 system. Or they could stand and risk everything. "Activate the quantum communication network," Day ordered. "Full coordination protocol." Every Terran ship suddenly moved as one. The quantum communication system allowed them to coordinate perfectly, with no delay. They became a single organism, each ship knowing exactly what the others were doing. The Terran fleet reformed into a new pattern. Instead of fighting individually, they created interlocking fields of fire. When one ship's shields weakened, others moved to cover it. When one ship fired, others ensured the target couldn't evade. The Vorath had never seen such perfect coordination. It was as if they were fighting one enemy with 150 bodies. "Impossible," Krath whispered. "How are they coordinating so perfectly?" His tactical officer had no answer. The battle raged for 3 days. Ships on both sides fell. The space around Sigma-7 became a graveyard of broken vessels and drifting debris. Crews fought past exhaustion. Weapons overheated and were pushed beyond their limits. On the 3rd day, Lieutenant Rena was one of the few pilots still flying. Most of her squadron was gone. She had taken a hit that damaged her fighter's life support. She was running out of air, but she kept fighting. "Just a little longer," she muttered to herself, lining up another shot. "Just a little longer." Her missile found its target, a Vorath command ship. As it exploded, she allowed herself a small smile. Then her fighter's power finally gave out. She drifted in space, her air supply running low, waiting for rescue or death, whichever came first. When the battle finally ended, both fleets were bloodied. The Vorath had lost half their invasion force, 1,500 ships. The Terrans had lost 40 ships and hundreds of fighters, but the Vorath retreated. Supreme Admiral Krath, staring at his losses, made the hardest decision of his long career. He ordered the withdrawal. As the Vorath fleet limped away, rescue teams from the Terran fleet searched for survivors. They found Lieutenant Rena drifting in her damaged fighter, unconscious but alive. They found her just in time. Admiral Day watched the Vorath leave and allowed himself a moment of relief. They had held. Against impossible odds, they had held. But he knew this wasn't over. The Vorath couldn't afford to lose again. Next time they would bring everything they had. And next time, Day thought, maybe defense wouldn't be enough. Maybe it was time to take the fight to them. Empress Zalara stood before the Council of Elders, the ruling body of the Vorath Empire. The chamber was vast and ancient, carved from a single piece of black stone. Around her, hundreds of the Empire's oldest and most powerful members watched with cold eyes. 2 defeats, Elder Morphus said, his voice echoing through the chamber. In 2,000 years, the Empire has never suffered such humiliation. These humans must be destroyed, utterly and completely. I agree, Zalara replied. But Supreme Admiral Krath has advised caution. He believes Krath failed, another elder interrupted. He lost half his fleet to primitives. Perhaps we need a new Supreme Admiral. No, Zalara said firmly. Krath is our best military mind. If he failed, it's because we underestimated the enemy. We won't make that mistake again. Then what do you propose, Empress? Zalara's eyes gleamed. We use the planet killers. A shocked silence filled the chamber. The planet killers were weapons of last resort, massive devices that could destroy entire worlds. The Empire had only used them twice in its entire history, both times to make examples of species that had dared rebel. That seems excessive, Elder Morphus said carefully. Is it? The humans have proven they can defeat our fleets, so we change the nature of the war. We don't fight their ships. We destroy their worlds one by one until they surrender. And if they don't surrender, then we destroy them all, Zalara said coldly. Far from the Imperial Palace, in a Terran intelligence facility, Captain Gina sat in front of multiple screens. She had been monitoring Vorath communications for months, slowly piecing together the Empire's true state. What she found shocked her. Admiral, you need to see this, she said over the secure channel. Admiral Day appeared on her screen. Report, Captain. Sir, I've been analyzing intercepted communications from inside the Empire. The situation is more complex than we thought. The Vorath aren't as unified as they appear. There are fractures, tensions between conquered species. Several worlds are on the verge of rebellion. Why haven't they rebelled before? Fear, sir. The Vorath have maintained control through overwhelming force. But our victories have changed the equation. For the first time in centuries, species within the Empire are seeing that the Vorath can be beaten. Rebellions are starting. Small ones for now, but they're spreading. Day leaned back, thinking. So the Empire is facing a war on two fronts. Against us, and against their own subjects. Exactly, sir. And there's more. I've intercepted communications suggesting the Vorath are planning to use planet-killer weapons against us. Day's expression hardened. Are you certain? As certain as I can be without direct confirmation. The Empress is desperate. She can't afford another military defeat, so she's considering genocide. Then we can't give her the chance. Day closed his eyes, making a decision that he knew would change everything. Contact Dr. Sora. Tell her it's time, and get me Ambassador Yuna. We're going on the offensive. Dr. Sora stood in the most secure research facility in Terran space. Around her, the greatest scientific minds humanity had produced had gathered. They had been working on a project so secret that only a handful of people knew it existed. The Helios Array. It's ready? Admiral Day asked, his hologram standing next to her. Yes, Sora replied, looking at the massive construct visible through the observation window. It looked like a flower made of metal and crystal, each petal a focusing array kilometers in size. We've tested it on asteroids and dead moons. The results are, well, you've seen the reports. Can it be used selectively? I don't want to kill civilians. It's a precision instrument, Admiral. We can target military installations with minimal collateral damage. But I need to be clear about what this is. The Helios Array taps directly into a star's energy. When fired, it can crack a planet's crust or vaporize a moon. It's the most powerful weapon humanity has ever created. And you're comfortable with us having this power? Sora was quiet for a moment. No, I'm terrified of it. But the Vorath are planning to use planet killers on our worlds, our children, our families, everyone we love. If this weapon can stop that, then yes, I'm comfortable with it. Sometimes you need a big stick to make people talk peace. Admiral Day turned to Ambassador Yuna, who had been listening silently. Ambassador, I need you to reopen diplomatic channels with the Vorath. Tell them we're willing to negotiate, but also tell them what happens if they refuse. You're going to threaten them with the Helios Array? No, I'm going to demonstrate it. Then I'm going to offer peace. And if they still refuse, then yes, I'll threaten them with it. Engineer Hyun stood beside Dr. Sora, making final adjustments to the array. He was young, brilliant, and slightly terrified of what they had created. System checks complete. All focusing arrays aligned. Power transfer stable. We're ready to fire when you give the word, Admiral. The Terran fleet mobilized in a way they never had before. Every available ship, every fighter, every weapon system. They weren't preparing for defense anymore. They were preparing for invasion. Captain Hana briefed her crew aboard the Iron Will. We're crossing the border. For the first time, we're taking the fight into Empire space. Our targets are military installations only. Command has been very clear about this. We don't target civilian populations. We're not conquerors. We're not monsters. We're soldiers. And we follow the rules of war. Her crew listened intently. They knew what was at stake. The Vorath think we're primitives, Hana continued. They think our victories were luck. Today we show them the truth. We show them that humanity doesn't just defend. When pushed, we push back harder. All hands to battle stations. The Terran fleet crossed the red line, moving into Empire space for the first time. Supreme Admiral Krath watched them come, his 4 hands clenched in frustration. He had been preparing defenses, but the Empress had pulled half his fleet to support the planet-killer operation. Engage them, he ordered, but maintain defensive positions. Don't let them draw us out of position. The Terran fleet struck the first military outpost like a hammer. The base, which housed 30 Vorath warships and supply facilities for an entire sector, didn't stand a chance. Graviton torpedoes destroyed the ships. Railgun fire demolished the station. Within an hour, the outpost was gone. The fleet moved to the next target, and the next. Each time they struck fast and hard, destroying military assets and then moving on before the Vorath could respond in force. But Admiral Day knew this was just the opening move. The real demonstration was coming. Dr. Sora, is the array in position? Yes, Admiral. We've moved it to the target system. We're ready. Day had chosen the target carefully. It was an uninhabited moon in a system the Vorath used as a weapons testing ground. Large enough to demonstrate the array's power. Empty enough that no one would die. Ambassador Yuna, send the message. Yuna opened a channel to the Vorath Empire. Her message was broadcast across every frequency, impossible to ignore. This is Ambassador Yuna Park of the Terran Federation to the Vorath Empire. We know you are planning to use planet-killer weapons against our worlds. We are here to demonstrate that we have the power to respond in kind. Watch and understand what we are capable of. Then contact us to discuss peace terms. In the Imperial Palace, Empress Zalara watched the transmission with confusion and anger. What are they talking about? What demonstration? She didn't have to wait long for an answer. The Helios array activated. Its focusing arrays caught the light from the nearby star and concentrated it. All that energy, all that power, focused into a single beam. The beam struck the moon. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the moon's surface began to glow. The glow spread, covering the entire surface in seconds. The moon's crust cracked, massive fissures opening across its face. Lava erupted from the cracks. The entire moon began to come apart. In 15 seconds, the moon was gone, completely vaporized. Every sensor in the system had recorded it. Every Vorath ship had seen it. Within minutes, the footage was spreading across the Empire. Zalara stared at the recording in horror. That's impossible. No weapon should have that much power. Supreme Admiral Krath stood beside her. For the first time in his 3 centuries of service, he looked afraid. Your Majesty, if they can do that to a moon, they can do it to any of our worlds. They could destroy our home planet from light years away. Then the planet killers would be useless, Your Majesty. Even if we destroyed all their worlds, they could destroy all of ours. We'd both lose everything. Ambassador Yuna's voice came through again. Empress Zalara, we have demonstrated our capability. We could use this weapon to destroy every world in your empire, but we don't want to. Unlike you, we don't seek conquest. We seek only to be left in peace. We're offering you one chance, one opportunity to end this war before it destroys both our civilizations. Meet with us, talk with us, or watch your empire burn. Zalara's hands shook. She looked around at her advisors, her generals, her elders. They all looked shaken. What would they demand? She asked quietly. Krath pulled up the terms that Yuna had transmitted. They want the release of all conquered species in their sector, a demilitarized zone between our territories, and an end to expansion in their direction. They're also offering trade agreements and cultural exchange. They're not trying to destroy us, Your Majesty. They just want us to leave them alone. Zalara closed her eyes. Everything she had built, everything the Empire stood for, was based on strength and dominance. To negotiate with an enemy, to show weakness, it went against everything she believed. But the alternative was annihilation. Open a channel, she finally said. Tell them I'll meet with their ambassador. On the Terran Command station, Admiral Day allowed himself a small smile. It's working. She's agreed to talk. Do you think she'll really negotiate in good faith? Hana asked. I don't know, Day admitted. But we've shown her that continuing the war means mutual destruction. Sometimes that's enough. The Peace Summit was held on a neutral station, an ancient trading post that had existed long before either the Vorath Empire or the Terran Federation. The station was old, its corridors carved from rock, its atmosphere recycled through systems that had run for 1,000 years. It was a place outside of politics, outside of war, a place where enemies could meet without fear. Ambassador Yuna arrived first, accompanied by Admiral Day and a small security detail. They waited in a large chamber, its walls covered in writings from dozens of alien species. Prayers, hopes, treaties from ages past. Nervous? Day asked quietly. Yuna smiled slightly. Terrified. We're about to negotiate with an empire that's ruled the galaxy for 2,000 years. An empire we've bloodied but not beaten. If this goes wrong... It won't, Day said with more confidence than he felt. We have the advantage now. They know it, and so do we. The doors opened, and Empress Zalara entered. She was impressive. Standing nearly 9 feet tall, her 4 arms adorned with symbols of her rank. Behind her walked Supreme Admiral Krath and several advisors. The Empress looked tired, Yuna noticed. The war had cost her more than ships. Ambassador Park, Zalara said, her voice carefully neutral. Admiral Day, thank you for agreeing to meet. Thank you for coming, Empress, Yuna replied. Please sit. We have much to discuss. They sat at a round table. No head, no position of superiority. Equals, at least in this room. Zalara spoke first. Your weapon, the one that destroyed the moon, is it real, or was that some kind of trick? It's real, Day said flatly. We call it the Helios Array. It can harness a star's energy and direct it anywhere in that star system. We have 3 of them, positioned in key systems along our border. Zalara's advisors shifted nervously. 3 of those weapons, 3 systems where the Vorath could never be safe. You understand that with such weapons, you could conquer the galaxy, Zalara said carefully. We could, Yuna agreed. But we won't. Empress, I need you to understand something fundamental about humanity. We don't want to rule others. We've spent our entire history fighting each other over who should rule, and it brought us nothing but pain. When we finally united and went to the stars, we made a promise. Never again. We would never impose our will on others. We would defend ourselves fiercely, but we would not conquer. Yet you've invaded our space, destroyed our installations. Only military targets, Day interjected. We could have destroyed cities, killed billions. We didn't, because that's not who we are. Krath leaned forward. If you're not conquerors, what do you want? Peace, Yuna said simply. We want to live in our space, free from threat. We want to trade, to exchange ideas, to exist without bowing to anyone. Zalara laughed, but it was bitter. Peace. The Empire has never made peace with anyone. We conquer or we destroy. Those are our only options. Then it's time to learn a new option, Yuna said. Because, Empress, I'm going to tell you something your advisors probably haven't. Your empire is crumbling. Zalara's eyes narrowed dangerously. Choose your next words carefully, Ambassador. Yuna pulled out a data pad. We've been monitoring communications across your empire. In the last 3 months, 27 colony worlds have risen in rebellion. The species you conquered are seeing that you can be beaten, and they're taking their chance at freedom. How many ships have you had to pull from the front to deal with these rebellions? Zalara said nothing, but her expression was answer enough. Your empire was built on fear, Yuna continued. Fear of your military might. But we've broken that fear. Every species in the galaxy now knows that the mighty Vorath can be defeated. They know that Earth, with a fraction of your territory and resources, has fought you to a standstill. How long do you think your empire will last now? We could still use the planet killers, one of Zalara's advisors said defiantly. Destroy your worlds before you could respond. You could try, Day said coldly, but you'd fail. We have defense systems you haven't seen yet. And even if you succeeded in destroying one of our worlds, we would use the Helios arrays to turn your core worlds to ash. Your species would be extinct before ours. Mutually assured destruction, Zalara said quietly. How very human. It's not ideal, Yuna admitted, but it's reality. You can't beat us militarily, not without destroying yourselves, and we don't want to destroy you, so let's talk about the alternative. Which is? Peace. Real peace. You release the species you've conquered in our region of space. They get their freedom. You establish a demilitarized zone along our border, 50 light-years wide. No military ships, no weapons platforms. We do the same on our side. You're asking us to give up territory we've held for centuries, Zalara said. I'm asking you to give up territory you can't hold anymore, Yuna corrected. Those rebellions we mentioned, they're not going to stop. Every day you fight us is another day your empire tears itself apart from within. How many ships have you lost fighting us? 5,000? 6,000? How many more can you afford to lose? Krath spoke up. The ambassador is right, Your Majesty. We cannot win this war. The humans have proven themselves superior in combat. Their technology, their tactics, their will to fight. We can't match it. If we continue, we'll lose everything. Zalara looked at her Supreme Admiral in shock. You're advocating surrender? I'm advocating survival, Krath said firmly. There's no shame in recognizing a superior foe. The humans have beaten us fairly. Now we must decide if we're wise enough to accept that and move forward. The room fell silent. Yuna watched the Empress carefully. This was the moment. Either Zalara would choose pride and doom her empire, or she would choose pragmatism and open a new era. What about trade? Zalara finally asked. You mentioned trade agreements. Yuna felt relief flood through her. The Empress was negotiating. That meant she was willing to make a deal. Yes, we're open to trade. We have technologies you need. Advanced medical science, agricultural techniques, energy generation. We're willing to share for a fair price. And what do you want from us? Cultural exchange, scientific cooperation, access to your historical archives. We want to learn about the galaxy, about the species you've encountered, not as conquerors, but as partners. Over the next 3 days, they negotiated every detail. The size of the demilitarized zone, which systems would be released, how the transition would be managed. It was exhausting, tense work. Several times, the talks nearly broke down, but each time, both sides stepped back from the edge. On the third day, they reached an agreement. Chancellor Minho, the president of the Terran Federation, arrived to sign the treaty. He was an older man, with gray hair and kind eyes. He had led humanity through the war with a steady hand, never losing hope, never losing sight of what they were fighting for. "Empress Zalara," he said warmly, extending his hand. The Empress looked at his hand for a moment, then carefully took it with one of her 4 hands. It was the first time a Vorath ruler had ever shaken hands with anyone. "President Minho, your people have proven themselves formidable. Your people have proven themselves adaptable," Minho replied. "It takes strength to make war. It takes wisdom to make peace. You've shown both." They signed the treaty together, their signatures marking the end of the war and the beginning of something new. The treaty stipulated that the Vorath Empire would release 53 star systems in the region near Terran space. Over 200 billion beings would gain their freedom. The Vorath would withdraw their military from the demilitarized zone, and both sides would establish embassies and begin trade negotiations. News of the treaty spread quickly. On Earth and the human colonies, there was celebration. They had won, not just a military victory, but something more important. They had secured their freedom and the freedom of others without becoming conquerors themselves. In the Vorath Empire, the reaction was mixed. Some saw the treaty as humiliating defeat. Others saw it as necessary pragmatism. But everyone agreed on one thing. The humans had changed everything. The galaxy would never be the same. Admiral Nari took command of the joint peacekeeping force that would patrol the demilitarized zone. She was a stern woman, but fair, and both the Vorath and the Terrans respected her. Under her watch, the transition went smoothly. Admiral Day stood on the command deck one last time, watching as the last Vorath military vessels left the demilitarized zone. He felt tired but satisfied. Beside him stood Captain Hana. "It's really over," Hana said quietly. "This chapter is," Day replied. "But there will be others. The galaxy is a big place. There are other empires, other threats. Humanity will face them too in time. And we'll be ready." "Yes, we'll always be ready. That's what we do." Elsewhere, Lieutenant Rena sat in a hospital bed, recovering from her injuries. She had survived the battle barely, and had been awarded the highest military honor the Terran Federation could give. But she didn't feel like a hero. She felt lucky to be alive. A young girl visited her, the daughter of one of the colonists on New Sol. "Thank you for protecting us," the girl said shyly, offering Rena a drawing she had made. It showed a fighter ship, clearly meant to be Rena's, flying among the stars. Rena took the drawing carefully. "You're welcome. That's why we fight. To protect people like you." Former High Chancellor Vrextail stood trial for war crimes. He had ordered attacks on civilian targets, had planned the use of planet killers. The tribunal, composed of representatives from multiple species, including humans and Vorath, found him guilty. He was sentenced to life imprisonment. As he was led away, he looked at Ambassador Yuna, who had testified at the trial. "You've destroyed the Empire," he said bitterly. "No," Yuna replied. "We've changed it. Whether that's destruction or evolution is up to your people to decide." In the years that followed, the galaxy did change. The freed worlds formed their own alliances. Some joined the Terran Federation. Others formed independent governments. The Vorath Empire contracted, becoming smaller but more stable. Trade flourished. Ideas spread. And humanity took its place on the galactic stage, not as conquerors or subjects, but as equals. They had fought for that right, bled for it, died for it, and they had won. Admiral Day, now retired, sat on a beach on Earth, watching the sunset. His granddaughter played in the sand nearby, building castles and dreaming of space. He thought about everything they had been through, everything they had achieved. They had faced the greatest empire in the galaxy and refused to bow. They had drawn a line in space and said no further. And they had been willing to back up that refusal with every weapon, every ship, every life if necessary. But more importantly, they had been wise enough to make peace when peace became possible. They had been strong enough to show mercy. They had been human enough to remember that their enemies were people too, capable of change. As the sun set over the ocean, Day smiled. Humanity had passed a great test, not the test of whether they could fight, but the test of whether they could fight without losing themselves in the process. They had passed, and the future, vast and full of possibilities, stretched out before them among the stars.